going on, everybody? I'm George. I'm a developer support engineer here at Niantic. So I build sample projects and work with our developers, internal, external, just building great stuff. And yeah, I collect feedback from people too. So if you have any feedback on our tools, make sure you share that on our forums. So today we're going to be going over what is VPS. Um, this is our visual positioning system. So this is a way for you to put virtual content in a real location anchored to a position in that location or um, just to that location in general. So whether it be a game, um, a billboard, anything, you can put your content in the real world and see it through the device. So you can access over 600,000 VPS activated locations from the geospatial browser. You can explore 3D meshes of real locations. So when these locations are scanned from Scaniverse and then they go through the VPS system, they get reconstructed as meshes, and then you can use those meshes as well in your projects. And then, yeah, we can visualize, test, and deploy as well. So yeah, let's get started with creating a VPS project. So the first thing you want to do is, if you haven't already, create an account on eighthwall.com. And you'll be prompted through the standard account flow, all of that stuff. You'll also be prompted to create a workspace. This is where all of your projects are going to be stored. You can be a member of multiple workspaces. You can sort of think about it as like a team. You can add people to your workspace as well. Um, but yeah, you're going to create your account in your workspace. And then later, we're going to create a project using Niantic Studio. Here's an overview of the Niantic Studio interface if you haven't used it. It's very similar to any other game engine, right? You've got the hierarchy on the top left, your assets on the bottom left, your viewport in the middle. You've got the launch toolbar, which has all your buttons for launching the simulator and testing and connecting your phone if you want to test on your phone. We have the inspector, which is where you change all the properties of something that you have selected. We've got the console, which is where all the messages about your experience will go if you have any errors or warnings or anything like that. And lastly, we've got the most important feature is the simulator. This is my personal favorite feature. It allows you to simulate your content, not just game content though. It allows you to simulate XR content, so like AR, face effects content with a bunch of pre-recorded footage that our engine runs on top of and actually calculates in real time. So here's a demo of what we're going to create today. I actually recorded this demo this morning. So I'm super excited. We're going to create this plane that can fly around this fountain near our office. And you're going to be able to collect coins by tapping on the screen, which makes the plane fly. And whenever you collect a coin, a new coin spawns. So what we're going to be doing is explore the geospatial browser. We're going to be anchoring content to this mesh. Um, we're going to be adding a game mechanic, and then we're going to test and play all of that stuff with the simulator. All right, let's build. Are you
Awesome.
guys ready? Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop my screen share and let you take over, George.
Cool.
Just a quick reminder for everyone, if you want to build along with George, this is going to give you plenty of time to actually watch and build if you have two monitors. I dropped a Drive folder link in the chat. Make sure you open that up, download those three files now so that you don't have to be held up by that process later. For those of you that are watching the replay, that Drive folder will be in the description of the YouTube video. So just check that, make sure you download that so that you can follow along as well.
Cool.
So here we go.
Awesome. All right, let's get started here. So just give me one moment here. Okay. Share the screen. And I will optimize for video sharing. Cool. Can everyone see my screen? Awesome. All right, so let's get started. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to eighthwall.com, and this is where we're going to start. So, yeah, head over to eighthwall.com, and if you're already signed in, um, you're going to click on your account here. Now, most people are just going to be a member of one or two workspaces. I work here, so I'm a member of a ton of workspaces. But click the one that you created, your personal one. So in this case, that's this one here. Now we're going to be in our workspace. So here now we're going to click New Project. If you're a pro subscriber, you'll have these other two options here, but we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to stay focused on Niantic Studio. For project URL, we're going to type in what we want the URL of our project to be. Um, I'm going to call mine Tappy Plane, but feel free to call yours whatever you want. And then for license type, I'm going to choose demo. And we're going to hit create. All right. So now we're brought to the template selection page where we can choose from a variety of different templates to start our project off. In our case, we're actually going to start from an empty project so we can see how to start from an empty project and build it up to a VPS project. So I'm going to click on the empty project, and now I'm just going to hit clone project. And if I'm ever going too fast, please let me know in the chat, or Pablo, you can just scream at me or something.
Got it.
Cool. So now that we're here in Niantic Studio, we've got the editor open. Um, we can hit play and just see what we see. This will pull up our simulator. Okay, so we see this blue box floating in the void. This isn't anything like what we want. We want a VPS experience. We want to be able to test our VPS experience. We got to do some stuff first. So let's close the simulator and let's head over to our hierarchy and click on the camera. Now that we've got the camera selected, let's go over to our properties, and under camera, we're going to make sure that the type we choose, instead of 3D only, we're going to choose world. This is changing it from 3D to XR content. And here under the device selection, where you see this computer icon, let's change it from 3D to disabled. The reason being is that it wouldn't make much sense to access VPS content on a desktop computer from home when VPS requires you to be at the location. And what's nice about doing this is if somebody were to access your experience on a desktop computer, the system will recognize that and it'll prompt them with a QR code, and you can customize that. And it makes it a little bit more of a better experience for your end user. And then most importantly, let's go down here. And for this checkbox, we're going to make sure that this checkbox enable VPS is checked. Now we've got this set up for XR content and VPS. So let's hit build, and then we're going to test it. So we're going to wait for this build to finish here. And let's hit the simulator button. Okay, cool. So we're kind of to where we want, right? We've got an AR experience, but it's not of our location. We haven't added our fountain, and we still have this blue box that doesn't make much sense. So let's close out of the simulator, and let's go up here to this map icon. This map icon is next to the project name here. It's this little paper map. By clicking on this, it's going to open up the geospatial browser. And if you've ever used a website like Google Maps or anything like that, it's a standard map. So you just click and drag to move around. Yeah, so you click and drag to move around, and you can zoom in. And if you want to find where you are, you can click on this little target icon here, and your browser might ask for permission to get your location. But by clicking on this, it'll bring you to where you are. So let's go up here to the filters, and let's change the filter type from status any. Let's change it to good and fair. This is going to give us locations that are actually activated and have a mesh and are ready to use in our VPS experience. So I know that the experience I want to build is at this fountain over here. So we're going to zoom in and we're going to click on the fountain. You'll notice that once we click on the fountain, we get two pop-ups here. We get the location information, and then we also get this mesh preview here. For now, let's close the filters and let's take a look at the location information. So California Avenue Fountain, it's got the coordinates and address, the rough estimate of how big the mesh is in comparison to a person, or like real life units. But we also get this pop-up here, which is the 3D reconstruction of the location created by scan data from Scaniverse. So we can move around here and we can check this out. Cool. So this is the location we want to build on. So let's add this to our project. So
Hey,
we're
George,
going to head over here.
real quick, for those of
Yeah.
you, for those that are following along and are not in the same area as you, what can they search so that they can find this location if they want to use the exact same one?
Yeah, so if you want to use the exact same location, you can search California Avenue Fountain, or you can type in the address here, or you can even type in these coordinates. Um, so I believe if we just copy these coordinates and
Yeah.
paste them in, it should bring you right there. So I'll paste these in the chat.
Thank you.
Mhm. So if anyone wants to build along at this fountain, they can. Or you can choose a fountain near you, or any other cylindrical thing. Okay, so now that we found our location, let's actually add it to our project. So let's go here to the project, or sorry, not project, the location information, this little panel here, and let's click add location. And you'll notice that once we click that button, it says in project. So we know it's in our project. So let's close the map because we only need this one location. And you'll notice that once we close the map, we see the location in our viewport here. And now that we have it selected, we can also see some stuff over here in our properties panel about the location, with the VPS status, location details, etc. This is going to come in handy later. So now let's hit build and we're going to test it again. So I hit build and then I hit the play button to open up the simulator. And we're still going to see something not quite what we expect, right? We're expecting to be able to walk around in our location and be able to test this scanning process. So in order to test that, the simulator has this cool feature where we can click on this little world icon down here towards the bottom underneath the time progress bar in the pause button here. And when we click that, it brings up all the different kind of ways you can simulate your content. Right now it's under world tracking and sidewalk, but what we want is one of the locations we've added to our project, and we want the fountain. So we're gonna hover over that and we're gonna click it. And once you click that, it's gonna change the simulator to simulate that location. Now, what's really cool is we can hold down the mouse and move around with WASD as if we're walking. Now, what's really cool about this is that this is how your users are going to experience your content. But the simulator breaks out the individual steps of what's called localizing using the VPS system into these different buttons. Now, what will happen automatically is when the user scans the QR code from your published experience, it'll open up their camera feed and the system will begin to what's called localize. That means scanning for various factors depending on where they are and what the camera sees, etc., to determine are they at the location and can the device tell where the location is relative to itself. So all of this stuff happens automatically, and that process is called scanning. What ends up happening is, let's say that you're walking towards the fountain with your camera open, and um, all of a sudden, the system starts to what's called localize. That means it successfully found the location. That means that it's going to initialize this event, this found event. We're going to use this for our game. So let's actually close the simulator for now. And you'll notice if we look around, we see our blue box. Now, what's interesting about this is we don't want that blue box and we want to bring in our own content. We want to start building our game. So let's close this and let's go over here to the hierarchy and let's delete this blue box and let's bring in the custom models that we have in the doc. So I'm going to upload airplane and coin.glb. So two different assets. And you'll notice that if once we finish uploading them, they'll appear here in our assets and we can click on them to see a preview. So cool, we've got our coin, we've got our airplane. Let me yeah, is the airplane in the drive folder?
It is. For those of you that opened the folder really early on, just refresh and you should be able to see a Google Doc, coin.glb and airplane.glb.
Cool, awesome. All right, let me know if there's any other questions or any other weirdness that shows up. Cool. Okay, so now that we've uploaded these to our assets, let's drag it in. Let's just drag in our airplane from the assets to the viewport. And what we want is we want to associate this airplane with the location. Now, because projects can have as many locations as you want, and the VPS system is constantly looking for locations, we need some way to determine that this plane belongs to this location and should only show up when we localize to this location. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to take the plane here in the hierarchy, the airplane.glb, and we're going to drag it to be a child of California Avenue Fountain. You'll notice that once I do that and I drop it in here, this now has a little arrow. And if we click on it, we can see that, okay, airplane is now a child of the California Avenue Fountain. This means that once we localize, this content will appear. So let's test it out. Let's hit build. And let's hit play. Cool. So if we walk around a little bit, we'll notice, hey, I can't see my airplane. Why isn't it showing up? Remember, the scanning process doesn't happen automatically in the simulator. It only happens automatically on the device. So in order to simulate the fact that we've successfully localized, we have to hit this found event. You'll notice that once I hit that, our plane showed up. So now if we were to test this on our phone, we could go out there to the fountain and actually see this plane on our phone in real space. So what we want to do now is we want to make it so this plane flies around the fountain. So let's close the simulator and let's kind of think about what we want to do. So let's go over here a little bit.
Hey George, real quick.
Yeah.
Someone was having an issue with the simulator.
hmm
They're saying bit stuck on getting the simulator connected to my device. Can you talk through this again? I think it might have been through the initial settings of turning on VPS and turning off the desktop. Uh,
hmm
yeah.
Yeah, if you're having trouble with the simulator, you might have to make sure that you hit build for the very first time if you haven't already. If you have, then I would suggest just refreshing your studio page. Sometimes the simulator can get out of state with what's going on, especially during the initial cloning process. But yeah, if it continues to happen or anything, feel free to let me know. Um, and we'll figure it out. It says this device is not in developer mode. Have you refreshed the page?
Since this device is not in developer mode. That's
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that
okay.
fixed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
sometimes you just have to refresh the page. Okay, so what we want is we want this plane to go around the fountain, but we want it to go around so it kind of looks realistic and we want it to point in the direction that it's going. So the easiest way to do this is we'll go over here to our hierarchy. We'll click the plus button, which means add a new object. We'll go down here to empty object. This is going to be the object that actually does the rotation of the airplane. Just like our airplane, we want this empty object to be a child of our location. So we're going to go here and we're going to grab it and we're going to drag it to be a child of the location. You might have to get in between the pieces here a little bit, but just remember that if you ever want to see if something is really a child of the location or a child of another object in general, you can click on this little drop down and you should see it disappear. So what we want to do is we want to position this empty object in the middle of the fountain so that way the plane flies around it. So the easiest way to do that is to be able to see the fountain from the top. So in order to do that, I'm going to go down here to this compass and I'm going to click on the Y coordinate, which is going to move my camera. Now that I've done that, I can zoom out here a little bit. Um, I'll click on the Y coordinate again, and I'm going to click on our empty object, and I'm going to grab this little pink square, which means that we won't only want to move it on the X and Z, not the Y. And I'm going to drag it to be the middle of the fountain. So that seems about right. Yeah, if you're having problems cloning a VPS project, you're probably trying to clone a non-Niantic Studio project. Um, I believe there is a shortcut, but I don't know it off the top of my head. Um, so okay, so now we have this empty object, and we're going to use this to actually spin the plane around the fountain. So what we want to do is we want to parent the airplane to the empty object, just like we did for the location. So grab the airplane and put it underneath the empty object. And in order to set this up properly, let's zero out the positions on the airplane so it's the same as its parent. So with the airplane selected, let's go to the X position and type in 0, Y, 0, Z, 0. You'll notice it goes here to the middle of the fountain, which is the same as our rotator. But we want it to be out near this flat part a little bit, so let's bring it out. The script I created earlier assumes that the Z coordinate is going to be about 2. So let's just type in 2 for the Z coordinate. That's going to mean that our airplane is going to go around the flat part of the fountain, and we get a nice round number, and we're all good there. But our airplane's still a little bit big, so let's scale it down. Let's scale it down to about 0.2. So it's more like a toy airplane. Now, for our empty object, um, because it's good practice to name your objects what they are, let's give it a name. So with the empty object selected, let's name it airplane. And if we rotate it here on the y-axis, we can actually see it spin around. But we want to do this automatically. So under the Y for the rotation, let's type in 0 and let's add a new component. So remember, this is for our empty object. With it selected, we're going to hit new component and we're going to hit animation. Then we're going to hit rotate animation. Now we just have to change some properties on the animation. So in this case, let's just select auto from. That way we don't have to type in 000, even though it's already typed in. But let's say that you don't have yours set at 0. And then for 2, we want it to make a full circle. So let's type 360 on the Y. Let's uncheck shortest path so it doesn't just go backwards by 1 degree. For the duration, this is how long it's going to take to do a full circle around the fountain. So let's do 5 seconds. We're going to make sure it loops and we should be good to go. So let's hit build and we'll test this out. And we should see our airplane flying around the fountain. So if you remember correctly, we have to hit found and we get an airplane flying around. But we still need some game mechanics. So let's add our coin. We're going to close out of the simulator for now. And we're going to click on our airplane and let's add a collider to our airplane. The collider is actually going to detect when it collides with something. So in this case, our coin, which has been already set up to respond to collisions. So now we just need some way to generate those collisions. And to do that, we're going to add a physics collider to the airplane.glb. Oh, don't worry. Well, we're going to add occlusion. Don't worry. So under the airplane.glb, let's click new component and let's add a physics collider. You'll notice that when I do that, it wraps this model in this red net, which is what's going to be the actual collision mesh for the airplane. So now that we have that, we also want it so that way when we press on the screen, our airplane moves up, and then when we release, it moves down. So let's go over here back to our document, and let's scroll down to our airplane controller.ts. Let's copy this entire component. So make sure you get the little brackets down here. And we'll copy everything in the black. And we'll head back over to Niantic Studio. And let's hit this plus button. Let's click new file and new component file. And let's make sure that it has the same name as what's in the document. So let's call it airplane controller. Airplane dash controller. And you'll notice it automatically gets the TypeScript file type. So that'll bring up our file editor here, but we don't need to worry about any coding for now. All the coding's been done for us already. I wrote the components already. So all we have to do is select everything in here and replace it with what we copied and save it. You'll notice that once you save it, it formats, so all the weird squigglies go away. And we can close this now that we've saved it and added it to our component. Custom components are great for when you want to do stuff that isn't built into Studio. So in this case, our game mechanic. So let's click on our airplane, not our airplane.glb, but our airplane empty object. And let's add this custom component. So with this clicked, let's click new component over here, and you'll see this new section called custom components. If we click on that, we get airplane controller. So let's add that. Let's hit build and let's test it. We should be able to touch on the screen, or in this case, click with our mouse and see it rise and fall. So let's hit play. Remember, we have to hit found. And if we hold down on the button, it goes up to a certain amount. And if we let go, it goes down to a certain amount. Cool. Everyone should have a flying plane by now. Let's add some coins. All right. So we're gonna close out of the simulator. And now we're gonna add another empty object, which is going to use our coin spawner custom component I've already written to spawn the coins around the fountain. So let's go up here to our plus button, empty object, and because we're good developers, we're going to give it a meaningful name. So let's type in coins. Now that we've given it a name, let's make sure that we drag it to be a child of the location. And now we just need to go back to our doc and copy the custom component. So we're going to go up here, and this is our coin spawner. Really wishing I had a mouse right now. Great. Okay, so you're going to copy all of this code, and we're going to name it the same thing, coin spawner. So let's click this plus button, just like how we did before. New file, new component file, coin-spawner. We're going to select everything in the file, and we're going to replace it with what we copied, and then we're going to hit save. It's going to get rid of those weird squigglies, and then we can close the file. Now, because of the way I've written the component, we need to do one more thing before adding it to our coin object here. We need to click on our airplane object. That's the object holding the airplane model. And we need to copy the X and the Z position. So let's make sure we have our empty object selected, position, copy the X, and click on coins and paste it into the X of coins. And then let's do it one more time for Z. So click on airplane, copy the Z, and paste it into the Z. And you'll notice I didn't put the negative there, so it was going to be weird. So let's make sure that these coordinates match. If we click on both of them, they should be in the same place. This is important for the functionality of the game, so make sure that both of these objects are in the same place. Now that we have the coins empty object in the same place as the airplane empty object, let's add our coin component. So with the coins object selected, let's hit new component, custom components, and we should see our coin spawner. Let's hit build, and we should have ourselves a functional game. So we're waiting for the build. Now let's hit play. Now I'm going to hit found, and we've got a spinning coin there, and we can collect it, and it spawns a new coin. Cool. So yeah, and as Pablo mentioned, the way I coded this custom component, it automatically grabs this coin.glb model from the assets based on the name. So just keep that in mind that if you're going to rename the coin.glb, you have to rename it in the coin spawner custom component as well. But what's nice about this is that you don't have to drag in the model or tell it that you want to use that model. You can just reference assets directly from code. So now that we have our game mechanic finished, let's add a little bit of polish. You'll notice that we can see the airplane through the fountain, and it's really weird, and it breaks the illusion that it's really there in real life. So let's close out of the simulator, and what we're gonna do is we're going to use this location mesh to hide objects behind it, which essentially gives us occlusion. So in order to get this mesh, let's click on our location up here, and you'll see down here, we have an option called download GLB. Now, if we go over here to our drop down, one of our options here is textured, but we don't want that because what we're doing is just hiding anything behind it. So we want to save as much resource space as we can, and we want to use as small of a file as we can. So let's click no texture, which will be smaller than the textured version, and let's hit download GLB. Now, in this case, the downloaded file is 23 megabytes. In general, you want to keep that lower. So there's different types of compression and optimizations you can do. There's also this low poly version. Depending on your location, you can try it. Sometimes it works great. But yeah, in general, you just want to keep your file sizes as small as possible. But for keeping the workshop as simple and accessible, let's just use what we're given. So let's go over here to our assets, and we're going to upload the mesh we just downloaded. So mine is called California Ave Fountain. So I'm going to click on it and upload. You'll see this upload progress here. In general, what is your ideal file size recommendation? So for models, I would try to keep them below 10 megabytes if you can. Um, if you have one like main model and it's like that's all people are going to see, 23 megabytes isn't that big of a deal, but you just have to keep in mind that a lot of people are going to be viewing your experience probably not on Wi-Fi and probably from a phone that's using cell service and um yeah, so just in general, you want to keep it low on the lower end. Do you find that the refining option in Scaniverse increases the data weight? Actually, it's the VPS system that generates the mesh. So what you're doing in Scaniverse doesn't affect the output of the result. We just get that data and build the mesh with it. So now now that we have our mesh uploaded into our assets, yeah, to answer that question, you can have more than one location in the project, and that's why it's so crucial to put objects under the location as children, because this is how the system knows that these objects belong to that location. Um, so now that we have our mesh uploaded, let's drag it into the viewport and let's go over here with its, let's make sure we have our mesh selected, not the location, but the mesh. And go over here to position and let's just type in 0, 0, 0. And let's make sure that it's a child of the location, just like every other object we have. And then all we need to do now is with that mesh selected, go over here to material type under mesh and change it from normal to hider. This is just going to make it hide anything behind that mesh. So we're going to hit build and we should have full occlusion now. So after we've successfully built, let's hit the play button. And if you're not seeing these location buttons down here, it probably means you need to choose your location from this drop down. So make sure you click here and you click your locations. And then you should see these options here. Now, all we have to do is hit found. And we can see that as the plane passes behind the fountain, it's hidden. Cool. So what did we do today? We used a VPS location. We imported some custom assets. We put some custom components on those assets to build a game mechanic, and we got fully functioning occlusion working for the location. So it feels like our content is really there. Um, so hopefully this was educational and fun and exciting. And I'm really looking forward to everyone posting all their fun airplane games on the forums. Um, And from here, we can take some questions and yeah, answer up some questions.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, George. That was
Mhm.
so well done and very informative along the way. Really quickly for everyone, just to answer some broad questions, this is being recorded and will be uploaded on the Eighth Wall YouTube page, along with the Drive folder in the description of that video, so that you all can download the files you need to build along, if you need that later. For the Q&A, there are 22 open questions in the Q&A. Please keep adding your questions there. The first thing we're going to do is answer questions related to this experience. So questions related to what George just built. And then if we still have time, we'll go into general Niantic Studio questions and along with general VPS questions. So give me a second here while I scroll through. Um, all right. Oh, yeah, this is actually a great question. What if there is no nearby VPS activated location, George? How would they go
Yeah,
about doing it?
yeah, that's a good question. So, um, do you mind if I share my screen to answer that question?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So, let's say that we click on the geospatial browser and there's no locations and we want to be the first to add some stuff. So I'm going to click out of here. Let's just say that there were no locations around here, but let's say we wanted my front yard to be a location, for example. We can just click anywhere on the map and we'll be presented with some options. This create private location. This is for our pro subscribers only, but anyone can create a public location. The important thing to understand about public locations is they go through a review process, and you also have to upload multiple scans and go through the creation process. So it's not instant. And even after you've finished all the scans, they still take a couple hours to process. But once you create a location, it gets approved, it's there forever. So I encourage everyone to create public locations that fit on our map and contribute scan data to existing public locations. So if you want to do that, let's say you want to make this fountain even better, you can click on a location that you want to improve. You can click View Details, and down here will be some tips for contributing scan data and stuff like that, along with a QR code that you can use in Scaniverse.
Yeah, it's important that if you're using Scaniverse, that QR code that's generated will be needed so that you can connect the geospatial browser to the Scaniverse app, and it's using the same login as your Eighth Wall account. So it's going to be very unique to you. So do not share that QR code with another developer because they will be contributing scans to your workspace moving forward. So just something to keep in mind. Alrighty, thank you for that question. I'm glad we went over that. Next up, let's see. Mm, 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 mm. All right, yeah, this is actually a really good one from Heather. Would it be possible to only use the simulator to create a VPS experience for the challenge? Say, for example, if we're not near one of the locations to test it ourselves, or would it not be recommended? Heather, the answer is kind of like not fully yes or no on this one. You can do that for the challenge if you're limited on being able to travel and getting to the location. However, I do recommend being able to go there to test it and film it. Being able to record the live game will go a long way to make sure that we can actually see the game in its environment. So yeah. Alrighty, so let's get back to some questions about this experience. Okay, so yeah, we have a question from Eleonora. Why did you add the controller component to the empty object and not the model itself? And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was brought up when you were adding in your custom component to the airplane controller.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the reason I added it to that object, if you remember correctly, that object is what controls the rotation of the airplane through the rotation animation. But I also wanted it to control the up and down movement as well through the custom component. You could apply it to the plane. The reason why I didn't is because let's say that in the future I wanted to rotate the plane depending on how it's moving, or maybe I wanted to give it some shake or something like that. Adding that component onto the plane now makes its movement relative to the plane's movement. So if I move around the plane at all, your plane's going to be moving around at weird diagonals, and we just want it to move up and down no matter what.
Awesome. Thank you. Alrighty. Let's see. We have a couple of really good VPS related questions, but let me see if there's anything. Um, all right. So yeah, we have a question from Peter. Is it possible to have a selection of message of meshes, for example, airplane component for the player to choose from? Is that a coding solution or is there a template? Can this project work with an image tracking setup? So there's like a couple questions in there, George, for you.
Yeah, so there's no template for multiple locations in a project yet. But if that's something that people want, I definitely encourage you to request it on our forums. I'm on our forums all the time, and I build a lot of our sample projects. And by posting it there, you let me and my team know that this is something that our community needs and would like more clarity on. Yes, you can add as many locations to a project as you want. There's no built-in feature to guide people to a location. This is something that's been highly requested. Um, uh, what I've done is sort of a workaround is uh, you can use map APIs and you can either use map APIs or images to kind of show people where to go. It really depends on how you as a developer want to give your user that experience and how you want to demonstrate, oh, go to this location and point your phone towards this place or this thing.
Awesome. Thanks, George. Alrighty. Is there a way to create? All right, cool. I think that is all of the questions related to the project. Now we're going to go in through some general VPS stuff. There was one I saw earlier that was really interesting. Okay, yeah, here we go. From Dan. Can you walk through or explain testing an experience on device while simulating the actual location? Meaning, if they're in San Francisco, for example, but the location is in Santa Cruz, can you actually test that through the simulator?
Yeah, so as you saw, we were able to test the fountain, even though I mean, we could walk over there. It's about 3 blocks over. But I like the comfort of my desk. So being able to simulate from here is wonderful for that. It doesn't matter how far away you are. If you want to be able to test on your phone, uh, I'll show you something here. Let's click on this. Okay, so let's close the geospatial browser. Uh, Next to the simulator button is this connect device button. And you can scan this QR code with your phone to pull up the test version of your application on your phone. Just keep in mind that the phone won't have the same capabilities as the simulator, so you won't be able to walk around on your phone. Um, And so with that functionality, you'll literally just see the camera open and it'll expect you to go and scan that location.
Mhm. Cool. Awesome. All right. I am trying to find some more questions here. One general question was, is this TypeScript or JavaScript? You can answer that really quickly.
Yeah, so you can do both. By default, components are TypeScript, but feel free to change the extension to JavaScript. Just keep that in mind that just keep in mind that most of our components are written with TypeScript in mind, so they have types in them. So if you change it from TypeScript to JavaScript, the component won't compile. It expect you to remove some of that TypeScript specific stuff.
Awesome. And then one question is there a portal template on the website? And there is actually for Niantic Studio Experiences. Specifically, there is a Splat portal sample project that is on eighthwall.com/projects. You can clone that and then add in your own different SPC files from Scaniverse. There was a question regarding how big of an area you can scan with the Scaniverse app. That is a great question. During the info session 2 weeks ago, Martine from the Scaniverse team went over some best practices for scanning. So if you go over to YouTube and watch the info session, there towards the end, there are some really good tidbits about what you can and shouldn't scan. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. Some of these were related to simulator being stuck, and I think, yeah, I think that's all we have for time, because if we get into some of the other ones, it's going to take a little bit of time. George, do you see any in the Q&A that you for sure want to get through?
Can Niantic eighth wall be used for commercial uses? Yes, it can. In the using Studio for commercial projects, I personally wouldn't recommend it while it's in beta. It it is legally possible. You'd have to look at our licensing terms for commercial licenses, but in general, we recommend using our cloud editor for commercial projects. Um, yeah, and you can see all that stuff under our pricing page, and if you scroll down, it has all the information about commercial licenses and commercial use as well.
Yeah, not impossible, because we actually just approved one,
Hmm.
a commercial project for Niantic Studio. So yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you have any further questions, or if we didn't answer your question during this, please continue to post those in the forum. If there's any questions related to the challenge, then the developer Slack challenges channel is the best place to ask. I'll be keeping an eye out for that. Oh, Camila, yeah. So a general question, what would you say the budget for a project like this would be?
For me.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually, I don't know. Um, is Declan here?
Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah, that's a really good question for Declan.
Um, I mean, like you saw how quickly George was able to wrap this one up, right? I would say that if you're doing something like this, it wouldn't be super expensive, just because I mean, we were able to do it in less than an hour, right? Um, it really depends what the uh, things you want to accomplish with the experience are. So if you have like other key points that you're trying to reach, like you're probably going to want to add in other things into an experience like this. I would say you're probably not just going to build this type of an experience. You're probably going to want to get some metrics. So, um, but I mean, I would charge just your normal day rate, depending on how long. I would probably do, I don't know, $1,500 for something like this, maybe. But um, you have to remember the licensing fees. That's the most important thing that you have to pay attention to when you're doing this type of a project on Eighth Wall, is just making sure that you're covering the licensing fees and the pro subscription as well. So that should be factored in anytime you're putting in a bid for an Eighth Wall project. You will have to pay a fee for licensing for long-term usage if you're doing this for a commercial project.
Thanks, Declan. And another thing to note is that we used a location that is already activated. So the time to activate a brand new location should also be factored in, because it does take pretty much a day's worth of time to scan a location fully.